Good morning and welcome to Citizen Extra, the Friday edition with me, Freddie Ndimuli. Now, with slightly more than 3 weeks to go to the elections, political intolerance once again rears its ugly head. 3 cases of politicians being heckled and rallies disrupted have occurred in a span of 3 days. Interestingly, none of the bodies tasked with promoting cohesion and tolerance have spoken on these matters. Are these shows of dissent spontaneous reactions by the electorate, or could there be cases of staged chaos at political rallies? The Constitution does guarantee the right to freedom of expression, but where do we draw the line between having varying political opinions and outright criminal activity? Now, 24 days to the elections, IEBC is still struggling to convince the country that it has all its bases covered. Questions raised in a KPMG report on the integrity of the voters' roll have been making news headlines and creating some level of anxiety. Yet IEBC says it has already acted upon the recommendations. Is it simply a communications problem? Has the IEBC done its best to build public confidence in its ability to handle these issues? Meanwhile, the spotlight is on the judiciary today as a 5-judge bench is unveiled to handle an appeal by IEBC against cancellation of the presidential ballot paper printing tender. Which judges will be on that bench? Will the Chief Justice consider recent criticism by politicians against some members of the judiciary? Also happening today, the country bids farewell to senior politician Gigi Kariuki, who was until his death last week senator for Laikipia County. President Uhuru Kenyatta is expected to attend the burial ceremony in Laikipia later this morning. We do have live pictures and we'll be giving you the update from there as well. Also making headlines this morning is the death of Ambassador Bethwel Kiplagat. Yes, Bethwel Kiplagat has passed on. He is a former diplomat and a Kenyan government official who served as the chairman of the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission between 2009 and 2012. He has also served as Kenya's envoy to the Somalia peace process between 2003 to 2005. He also headed the board of the African Medical and Research Foundation between 1991 and 2003. Prior to that, he served in the then President Daniel Moi's government for 13 years between 1978 to 1991 as Kenya's ambassador to France, High Commissioner to Britain, and Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He is also the founder and former executive director of Africa Peace Forum. Now, we do have live pictures from Laikipia, where the body of the late senator for Laikipia County, Gigi Kariuki, has arrived there ahead of the burial aboard a police chopper. We do have those pictures. Of course, the body is heading to Rumuruti later on, where the burial is expected to take place. Let's have those pictures.
Kariuki.
Those are pictures from Laikipia, both recorded and live, of the arrival of the body of the late Gigi Kariuki. That's a senator for Kiambu County who passed on last week. The burial is set for Umuruti later today, and President Uhuru Kenyatta is expected to be attending that ceremony. Of course, our reporter Francis Gashuri is in Laikipia and will be updating us on the events surrounding the burial of the late Senator Gigi Kariuki. Now in studio, we privileged this morning to have, as part of my panel, Dr. Sam Kamau, Bonaonchari Oyeyo and Brian Weke, my analysts this morning. Good evening, good morning, gentlemen. Karibu sana. We'll be discussing issues to do with electoral or political intolerance, issues of violence that have been witnessed at political parties this past week, including yesterday in parts of Thika. But before that, let's get an update from John Wanyama, our reporter in Eldoret, before we come back to the discussion in studio. Do we have Wanyama? A very good morning to you, Wanyama. Kindly update us on the happenings in Uasin Gishu County, specifically Eldoret, this morning.
Good morning, Indimuli, and from here, Eldoret town, is that the religious leaders are meeting today. Over 1,000 religious leaders are meeting today. Just maybe to think and come together to say, hey, look here, we need peace before and after election. And this has come after maybe the county was labeled to be a hotspot region after the leaders came out and say, Ole Kaparo said this region is a hotspot when it comes to violence. And religious leaders have said they are coming together today to ensure nothing of such a sort happen again in this region and anywhere in the country. Recently, we have seen Governor Jackson Mandago also coming out telling residents of Uasin Gishu County that no one should leave this county to go anywhere after and before election. And Governor has also assured residents that nothing will happen and no one should go away with his vote without casting his or her vote. Mandago also has requested residents to keep peace, and he also insisted on those who are looking for different, vying for different political seats, that please let's not bring discrimination or tribalism in between our people in Uasin Gishu. So today we are expecting just to see how religious leaders are going to do this, and also we have been informed that they are also going to meet some political leaders so that they can just come together and ensure that there is peace and that no one should bleed or no one should die because of just a vote or looking for a seat. County Commissioner for Uasin Gishu also has said he has put all what requires on the ground to ensure Kenya or Uasin Gishu County witnesses peaceful voting and peaceful election before and after this election. In the Muli, from here, I have no much, but as I come back to your studio, I just want to inform you that Uasin Gishu County, as a county, most of residents, as you can see behind me, they have said no one is going to throw stones, and they are going to be tolerant to each and every candidate who is coming here to look for the vote, and nothing of the sort that happened in 2007, 2008 will ever be witnessed from this county. In the Muli.
Thank you, John. John Wanyama there live from Eldoret in Uasin Gishu County, giving us an update of the happenings in that county this morning. Of course, religious leaders coming together later today for a forum where they will call for peace and probably pray for the nation. In a short while, we'll be heading to the lakeside city of Kisumu to link up with our reporter Laura Otieno for an update from that end. I do understand we have Laura. Very good morning to you, Laura. Kindly update us on the happenings in the lakeside city of Kisumu this morning.
Yes, a very good morning to you back at the Communication Center. And here in the county of Kisumu, of course, the NASA's stalemate is still it's still underway. And as you can see behind me, the arena is already set. The NASA's usually have their weekly meetings here. They meet here every day to discuss the development on what is happening, whether their CBA is being signed or whether there are any progresses being made at the head office. And now, as you know, the NASA strike has well gone over its 30th day. It's over a month now since the nurses started striking, and they still insist that until the CBA is signed, they will stay out of hospitals. Now, we've been going around hospitals around the county, and we can confirm that no nursing services are being offered in government facilities, government health facilities, and government hospitals. We saw various stakeholders like the Labour CS Phyllis Kandie, Kotu, trying to come in to try and resolve the stalemate, but they all hit a snag. And if I could talk to the chairperson here, Madam, kindly, would you come forward and tell me what is your stand as it stands? Are you planning, if you have a return to work formula, will you go back to work?
My name's Flora Ambani. I'm the chairperson for Kisumu, Kenya National Union of Nurses, Kisumu branch. And as for now, our stand is nurses will not go back on duty until our CBA is signed. We have been away from the hospitals for over 1 month, and it's like the hospital, the government has been very cool, has given us a cold shoulder. It has never even thought of the patients who are dying. There are billions of people outside here who are dying, and yet the government is not even seeing. The politicians are going round trying to look for votes, and we are wondering as nurses, which votes are they looking for, while the very votes are the very people who are dying. We are very sorry. We are very sorry as nurses. As soon as the CBA is signed, we can easily go back on duty. But so long as they will not sign it, it's like these people have taken us for granted. We are the backbone of nursing. We are the backbone of nursing, and I stress that with knowing that hospitals are now closed now. The doctors are there, the clinicians are there, everybody else is there. Why are they not serving the patients? And yet we are out, and the services cannot continue. Government hospitals are closed, and we are not happy. Our people are dying. Our people are perishing. They depended most on us. And now that we are out, let the government see to it. Let the governors see to it. Let the COGs see to it. Are they happy with the situation in the country? The country is bleeding. The country is bleeding. We are asking the president, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Uhuru Kenyatta plus Ruto, what are they doing? What are they doing about the nurses? Why are they quiet? Why are they giving us a cold shoulder? Why have they kept quiet all this length of time we've been away? How many billions have died? Are they really sensing out what is happening in the country? What is happening with this country? Are they happy that the country is now in this stressed period? We are not happy as nurses, and we shall not go back but unless the CBA is signed. Let them sign the CBA. It is just an order from the president, and things are done. He is a directive. Can he direct this? Can he make sure this is done? Nurses, we are tired. We are not ready to be going on the roads every now and then because of whatever is to be done for them. We are requesting for our rights. We are not requesting even whatever we have asked for. It's also...
Yeah, back in studio, yeah, those are very heated sentiments over there. And of course, they say that the chairperson here says that nurses are the backbone of the hospital. And we can indeed confirm, as we saw the Doctors Union Secretary General, Dr. Oluga, actually come out and say that it's very hard for them to work without the nurses. And as you can see, they're already dressed in their regalia. They'll be taking to the streets later on. We'll be following up that action and bringing you the latest from this front. Back to you, studio.
Thank you, Laura. Laura Otieno there giving us an update on the nurses strike from Kisumu. Or we'll be getting more updates from that end in the course of the day. Thank you so much for that report, Laura. Just before we go back to our discussion, let's take more pictures from Laikipia. Yes, that's a convoy of vehicles, including the hearse carrying the remains of Senator Gigi Kariuki. That's a senator for Laikipia County, from the airport in Nanyuki heading to Rumuruti ahead of the burial ceremony later this morning. That event will be attended by, among others, President Uhuru Kenyatta. Meanwhile, at the home, more pictures there of the preparations going on, where the burial service will be held. And we'll continue bringing you updates from that end. Nigeria. As I had mentioned earlier, I'm privileged to have distinguished gentlemen in the studio this morning, Dr. Sam Kamau, Brian Weke, and Onchari Oyeye. Gentlemen, it's been a very tough week for the country. Past 2 weeks or so, we've seen quite a number of the senior politicians leave us. Of course, today we've just been talking about the burial of Gigi Kariuki. We expect another funeral tomorrow for the late CS for Interior, Joseph Nkaiseri in Kajiado. Now, this morning, Ambassador Bethel Kiplagat has left us. And it is a tough time, but probably, and as far as Bethel Kiplagat is concerned, how would you remember him? Brian, let's start with you.
First, let me say it's a very sad period for this country. We now have around 4 VIPs whose bodies are lying in the morgue. I think this country definitely needs prayers. I think Ambassador Kiplagat has had a very distinguished career in terms of his diplomatic work. But one of the key things I remember him for as an individual is when he chaired the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission. And of course, you know very well, Fred, that report was amended many times when he chaired that particular commission. And that report is yet to be implemented. So for me, I think in remembering Kiplagat, this country needs to interrogate the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission report and implement it in its entirety. Because even currently what you're seeing in this country, issues to do with intolerance as regards elections, issues to do with cohesion and the fact that that is yet to be achieved, it's because we have not interrogated that particular report and implemented the recommendations. Because the idea behind the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission was to say and acknowledge where you went wrong and say, look here, I offended you. Look here, I banned people in a church. Look here, I stole people's land. Then you come and say, I apologize, I come forward and return the property so that we can start on a clean slate as a country.
Okay. Bwana Onchari Oyeye, how do you remember Bethel Kiplagat?
Thank you, Fred. I'd like to join Brian in requesting Kenyans to pray for the nation. Definitely we need prayers. Now, Kiplagat is someone who has a very, very splendid life. I think I remember his participation in the Southern Sudan peace process. He played a very key role, of course, and I think the nation has been very, very advantaged and blessed with his life. The best we can do at this moment, because of the kind of dedication is given to peace, is to make sure as we approach elections, we do it in a very peaceful manner. We conduct our campaigns in a dignified and peaceful way so as to avoid chaos. Now, when it comes to issues of nation building, it is tough. Of course, Kenya has a checkered history when it comes to implementation of things to do with justice. That is what we call, of course, so many politicians like referring to as historical injustices. Now, if we begin going back, it might not be something we can deal with over a short period of time. So it's all about forgive, forget, then we move forward.
Okay. Dr. Sam Kamau.
Well, I first wish to express my condolences to the family of Ambassador Kiplagat. But I think as a person, I remember him for quite a number of things. Maybe the biggest one is the peace initiatives in the Southern Sudan, like my colleague Onchari has said. But also his efforts in leading the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission in helping our country confront the past, which is still haunting us even today. And I think we still see a lot remains to be done, especially the reconciliation bit, since we can still see there are divisions that occasionally manifest and occasionally erupt into violent acts which we are still dealing with. So I think I recognize the great role he played in looking at some of these past injustices and issues that have happened and some recommendations that were made. And I think we still need to dig deep into that report and see what are the things that need to be done to make sure that we have a united country. But I have to acknowledge a lot remains to be done, but we recognize his efforts and his contribution.
Yes. Now, gentlemen, you've all mentioned the issue of the TJRC report, issues of cohesion, and That has a lot to do with our first discussion this morning, to do with political intolerance. Even as we continue getting more updates about the death of Ambassador Bethel Kiplagat, let's now move on to our main discussion today about political intolerance. And we've seen cases of heckling of very senior politicians in some areas. I remember, I think earlier this week, was it Sunday, that or Monday, where the deputy president, while accompanying President Uhuru Kenyatta to Mbita, the deputy president was heckled by the crowd as he addressed the crowd. The same day, the NASA leadership was in Baringo County, and they encountered some hostility. And from there, those people who were interviewed, and we had it on Citizen TV, will be showing you some of those photos and some of the vox pops as well. They said they were reacting to what happened in Mbita, that if at all you had welcomed our leaders there in a better way, we would do the same for you. We saw something else yesterday as the NASA leadership went into parts of Kiambu and Muranga and encountered some hostility as well, which degenerated into even chaos, forcing police to use tear gas to disperse some rowdy youth. Now, this is just slightly more than 3 weeks to the elections, and the country had hitherto appeared a bit calm, even apart from what happened during the party primaries. At least the campaigns have been very peaceful up until yesterday or this week. Then we start seeing this thing, and question is this spontaneous reactions by the electorate? Are they heckling leaders because they disagree with them, and that is a feeling that comes spontaneously? Or do you think that some of these hostilities are staged? Let's start with you, Brian.
I think it is extremely unfortunate that in this time and era we can still go to political rallies and choose to heckle leaders. If you do not agree with a certain politician, there are two options: either do not attend the rally, or attend the rally and listen to what they have to offer. I think it is quite unfortunate that still in this time and era, you know, those are things that are overtaken by events. But let me just clarify certain issues, Fred. You know, I come from Suba, which is in Mbita district, and actually Mbita constituency. When the president came to open the bridge that connects the mainland to Rusinga Island, he was received very, very well. And we had spoken to our people. We told them that the president is coming, and people were quite impressed, because it is the first time in a long period. Actually, it is the first time that the president has ever come to Rusinga Island since independence. So basically, he was received extremely well. And let's be very honest, you know, people in that area, they do not agree with certain fundamental principles and issues. You know, the DP has been tied with a number of things, including corruption cases. So people are not really happy with the DP. But I want to categorically say that we definitely have to be tolerant to each other. Yes. This is a political process. And there are no two ways about it. And this actually started, Fred, in Kapsabet, Nandi County, when NASA visited Kapsabet, and the people entered the stadium and they were chanting slogans of Jubilee. And I think this is because of the fact that even to date, and I had Unchari talking about let's accept and forget, that theory of accepting and forgetting, that theory of accept and move on, will not heal this country. It is important for us to understand, and that's why you're still seeing these things happening. Now it is happening at a presidential level. It will move down to positions like gubernatorial and other positions. So for me, the question is, how do we deal with these issues, Fred? Yes. And number one, IEBC needs to rein on candidates, because for the first time in the history of this country, we have a piece of legislation that provides for political offenses, because a lot of these issues now, it does not even It's not about intolerance.
Because some of this borders on criminal activity.
Absolutely, it's a criminal activity.
And Onchario, yeah, because it is a political season, and we do agree that, of course, we will not agree on everything. Of course, someone else will have an opposing opinion to the one you have, or a different one to the one you have. Why are we seeing this now?
Well, I'd like to quote Jesse Jackson. In 1984, he made a very nice statement whereby he reminded Americans the significance of accommodating each other. Competition is meant to make us better, not bitter. And we can agree to disagree if we cannot agree. Now, the issue of heckling that happened in Kisumu is quite unfortunate. And I don't want to narrow down to personalities and begin talking about, oh, the deputy president is not liked, or this, or I don't want to do that. The thing is, if you don't like my ideas, you don't like my politics, don't attend my event instead of showing up and then trying to disrupt it. We have a problem of what we call political mobilization by very, let me call them mediocre politicians. Instead of telling a politician, hey, I don't like your ideas, but welcome to my territory and campaign, you mobilize people to go and heckle them.
So you feel that some of these...
That is what happened. Those young men who show up in rallies and begin chanting slogans do not do that spontaneously. It's always organized. You guys are given small amounts of money and they do that. They are sent to actually embarrass a particular politician for a political end. The problem is, now what we're seeing is what we call the ripple effect. It happened in Kisumu, most likely, you know, the guys in cabinet made it very clear. The reason as well we're doing this is, you've mistreated our wife down at Kisumu. So from cabinet it went to Thika. We're likely to see that happen. The problem starts with politicians who do not have ideas, and they have to keep other politicians from their territories by use of goons. So it's upon the leaders we have to make sure they can control their people. That is it. Some guys do not do that spontaneously. It doesn't happen like that.
Some, do you agree that some of this, most of these heckling and let me call them cases of unrest at political rallies are staged and not necessarily spontaneous?
Well, Fred, we are living in politically charged environment, especially as the elections draw near. And what happens the world over is that as election day approaches, you tend to see passionate supporters at times going overboard. And what happens in a politically charged environment is that it requires the smallest trigger for things to start happening. Now, I think one of the issues we have ignored is that ahead of what happened when the president and his deputy went to the Nyanza region, and specifically when they went to Bita, before their visit, ahead of their visit, the senator for Homa Bay, Moses Kajwang, actually made some utterances to the effect that the deputy president was not welcome, that they were willing to receive and welcome the president, but not the deputy president.
Isn't that almost criminal?
And that is what I was going to say, that such triggers, because these are just sentiments. Maybe he was just sticking to his way of campaigning and trying to mobilize his supporters. But those statements, when those words were uttered ahead of the visit, it actually manifested some supporters. I don't even need to say that they were maybe organized or mobilized to come and do this, but in response to some of the words that were spoken. And I think there's a time we have to be very careful as leaders, or the political leaders, the words that they utter, because what we saw is that once that happened in Homa Bay, and the same day there was a reaction now again in Baringo. And what happened yesterday, because if you remember, Fred, just the other day we were actually praising the people of Kiambu because of receiving the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. They welcomed him, they attended his rallies, and they actually supported or were happy to see him. Even if they will not necessarily vote for him, at least they welcomed him. So what changed that yesterday again when we went back to parts of Kiambu and Murang'a, this happened? It's simply because of the ripple effect. Something small triggered this, and that is why I think IEBC must rein in. Such simple utterances from politicians should not be encouraged or entertained, and they must pay heavy penalties because of this. So we have to be careful the things that are being said. But having said that, we understand and we know campaign season, especially the election rules now, it's a highly divisive environment, and people tend to say things. We also read some of these things on social media. The divisions are there, but I still think we can campaign peacefully. We can still express our ideas, and all the candidates should feel free to visit any part of the country without necessarily facing this kind of hostility.
And what is the role of these bodies that are supposed to encourage cohesion? Yes, we do have the NCIC. IEBC is also supposed to rein in on political violence or malpractice for that matter. No one has spoken about these incidences that we are seeing this week, yet they have the potential to actually blow up and become something else. Surely the NCIC is a role only on monitoring hate speech. shouldn't they be working on containing such cases as well?
Well, we saw the chairman of IEBC express regret at what happened, and I think this is part of the challenge with these different bodies. Just issuing statements and maybe publicly reprimanding the politicians without taking action is part of the problem. Of course, we know, again, in a political season and where the stakes are so high, any action or any move by some of these bodies, of course, may even in a sense popularize the candidates even more. But I think it's about time we saw action being taken. We know IBC recently disqualified somebody, but it's simply because a person because he never paid the fines or never followed the instructions that were given by IBC. But we actually need to see candidates being bad. The law is very clear. The offenses, once an offense has been committed, we should see action being taken on these people to discourage other people from doing that thing. Of course, in a sense, we know that these bodies will just keep talking, keep backing, but no action seems to be taken.
Brian, of course, the Constitution guarantees the right to freedom of expression. You're free to express yourself at a political party. You can even disagree and verbalize your disagreement with even a politician. But when it comes to throwing stones, burning things, destroying property, that's definitely criminal activity. Don't you think we're becoming too complacent, and simply because it's a political season we just let so many criminal activities slide?
I think while the Constitution provides for freedom of expression and freedom of speech, it is important that leaders understand that that does not happen in a vacuum. You have to carry yourself in a certain manner. You have to know that in every right there is a responsibility. And I want to agree with the Daktari. When the senator for Homa Bay utters words like, when you come to Homa Bay, do not come with the deputy president, to me, really, it is quite irresponsible. And you can see clearly that is what made the people respond to the deputy president the same way they did. So I want to agree with you that yes, even though the Constitution provides for freedom of expression, there is another expression that borders a criminal offense. Now, even before I go through that, what has the NCAC done about Kajwang's utterances? Because as you can see, the ripple effect of just one spoken word. You see, of course, in Mita we were largely calm. You saw the ripple effect in Kisumu, the attendant effect in Baringo, and subsequently in Central. So these constitutions, the constitutional commissions, who earn a lot of money, really they have to do their work. And not only constitutional commissions, we have the DCI, we have the police, we have the Director of Public Prosecutions. They told us that they had gadgets to monitor what people are saying, and yet we're not seeing anything happening. Let me tell you, Fred, in 2007, this is how violence started. And if we do not deal with this, clearly, I can tell you for a fact, violence will be inevitable.
But we're saying we need to deal with it. Who is this that we're waiting for to come deal with this?
Now, I'd like to make an observation about our system of politics. Kenya, just like most African countries, and not just African countries, of course, the third world, is used to dealing with symptoms. If we begin at a very tender age, at a very, very early stage in our education system to teach our kids about ethics, about tolerance, and we deal with tribalism at that particular level, by the time we get to a time when guys want to go for positions, you will see a very low level of expression of the kind of primitivity we're seeing in the campaign trail right now. Now, the constitutional commissions, like the one that is headed by Kaparo, I could just describe them as toothless bulldogs. They don't, of course they have the mandate, the kind of work they should be doing is very clear, but like Brian said, they earn a lot of money for nothing. They've not done anything, no one has been taken to court, no one has been given any kind of punishment, and if you just back and you don't bite, no one is going to respect you. So we know we should be working. The police are there, they're not doing anything. As we here now discussing, Kajwang is free. So if you take action, it's going to send a message of, hey, you have to practice a high level of what? Responsibility as a leader. Some of these guys don't even need to be called leaders because they don't exhibit any kind of leadership qualities as they campaign. So these commissions and the police and the other guys who are responsible need to take action. citizens can always respond to the directions they're given to leaders. That is why they always behave the way they do. Had Kajwang not made the statements he made, most likely those guys couldn't have responded to Deputy President William Ruto the way they did.
Okay.
Yeah, so this commissions need to take action, the police needs to be proactive, and we have to
now
see
that
guys...
we've seen all these bodies are not doing anything, the police, the NCIC, because all these things were public and no arrests, no action taken. Where do we turn to now? Do we turn to the politicians? Do we turn to the political parties? Dr. Sam?
Yeah, Fred, I was actually going to bring in the issue of the political parties and the political leaders. There are two issues I want to point out. One, of course, is the style of campaigning. There is also a sense in which, if I, as a politician, am used to insulting and using degrading remarks against my political opponents, you can expect that their supporters are likely to react to me in a specific way. So also the language of campaigning is a key component in this. But I think the bigger issue here is that the followers tend to do these things in support or on behalf of some of their political masters. I am not saying that the politicians themselves are the ones who mobilize and organize these people, but at times we know that the kind of power and influence these political leaders will, for example, to heal these issues, it would be nice if we see when these the major political leaders or the presidential candidates, if they meet maybe in the burial ceremony or a requiem mass of one of our departed leaders, they could actually take that chance and call for peace like we saw yesterday. But besides calling for peace, they should also speak directly to their supporters. For example, it would be nice if we saw the governor of Muranga and the governor of Kiambu express regret because of what happened, or the same also for Homa Bay. And also the political leaders express regret and call on their supporters to actually maintain calm, receive and embrace the political leaders who come to campaign even if they do not necessarily agree with their ideas. I think they would play a bigger role than even the constitutional commissions, because they have this direct influence over the people. So we change the style of campaigning, not use insults and degrading other leaders, but also call upon our supporters to maintain calm, embrace even our opponents, even if they do not necessarily agree with what they have to say.
Yeah, Brian, of course it takes a very simple statement from let's say the bigger candidates, Raila Odinga, President Uhuru Kenyatta, just to go to their strongholds and say, whoever comes here, please welcome them. Have we seen that? Or is that what is missing, and therefore this kind of unrest that you are seeing now?
I think in all fairness, that is largely missing, and yet you see the leading candidates trading insults. You hear the deputy president calling Raila Muganga, the guy of Katikati, the other one, when you hear Raila speaking, he says the corrupt one, Ole I don't know what, Mashamba. You know, if you do not go to your area, and this country has strongholds, and say categorically that when other people come here, when the president or the former prime minister come here to campaign, or any other candidate, please receive them and listen to what they have to say.
Because, Brian, the question is, of what value or what benefit? Because Raila Odinga knows Central and Mount Kenya region is as good as done in terms of votes. He is going there because he has to campaign throughout the country. You listen to President Uhuru Kenyatta, even when he was asking people in Nyanza if they're going to vote for him, he didn't sound very convinced. He said, hey, wewe pengine munanichezea. This kind of violence, does it benefit anyone in terms of gaining votes? Does it stop anyone from gaining more votes? So for example, what happened in Kiambu and Muranga yesterday? If at all Raila had been allowed to go and campaign peacefully, does it mean that he'll get more votes than expected?
I think, for me, Raila going to Central is more of a PR gimmick. It is a PR process, because clearly that particular area we definitely vote for Jubilee. For Uhuru Kenyatta to go to Nyanza, it is a PR process. And for me, I think it would be brilliant, and it would help us for purposes of moving forward to show that there is tolerance. There is nothing wrong with Raila going to Central and selling his agenda. There is nothing wrong with Uhuru Kenyatta going to NASA strongholds and selling his agenda, because again, the vote is with the people. But again, if you look at the Constitution, Fred, it provides that for you to be declared the president, there is a bigger threshold than just first past the post. Of course, you have to garner 25% in 24 out of the 47 counties. So in many instances, you find these particular individuals, they're looking for the 25%. But over and above that, I want to tell you for a fact, if you look at the numbers, Fred, the numbers are too close.
Yes.
Sometimes if you go to Nyanza and you get 1,000 votes, that would determine a lot. If you go to Central and you are able to inspire an extra 1,000 people.
Is it too close that Uhuru Kenyatta would be apprehensive if Raila visits Kiambu? For example, is it too close for such that William Ruto would feel that if Raila visits Uasin Gishu, it would determine?
I think I want to tell you very honestly that this election is extremely close. It is extremely close.
So you don't want to see your opponent visiting your area?
No, and by the way, sometimes you would even find that it's the candidates themselves who instigate violence for purposes of ensuring that they bag their area. For instance, you notice that in Rift Valley, they were really responding very well to the NASA brigade. But once the deputy president was heckled in Nyanza, you saw the ripple effect. So sometimes, again, it is a strategy. Even the candidates themselves, as Onchari had mentioned, you find that they've hired goons to ensure that they are heckled themselves, so that that is replicated within the area, so that they can consolidate that particular area. And I want to agree with you. This election is extremely close, and it will be won by sheer turnout. It will be won by ensuring that you tie loose ends within your strongholds.
Fred, I want to introduce a slightly different angle to the same question that you have asked. It's very important for Raila to visit the Mount Kenya or the Central region. I was actually excited last week when he visited Kiambu and explained, because you know there is this thing of Railaphobia that is always preached in Central Kenya. And he came and told them, I do not have a problem with you. It is part of reconciliation and healing the nation. And since we know that there is a likelihood that either Raila or Uhuru Kenyatta, one of them will be president after these elections, it is important that they actually visit these regions, even where they don't have overwhelming support, as an expression of saying, I will be your president. And that is what Raila sought to assure the people of Kiambu, that once I take over, I do not have a problem with you. I will be your president. I will serve you. We've also had, when Uhuru goes actually to Nyanza, he keeps saying that even if you did not vote for us, we still have to serve you, to tawaletea maendeleo. And I think that is very important in itself. Even if they will not necessarily gain more votes, is an important part of nation building. It's also an important part of actually lowering the tensions, because we have seen that, especially for the politicians campaigning in the strongholds, for example, if it's Central Kenya, the easiest way for them to popularize themselves is to speak against Raila. And some of the politicians in Nyanza, for example, the easiest way to popularize themselves is to speak against the deputy president or even Uhuru Kenyatta. So when these leading politicians visit each other's stronghold, it is part of actually bringing the country together. It's part of expressing hope and saying we can actually forge a way forward. So when Uhuru actually asked the people from Nyanza whether they will support him, and they said yes, and he told them mnanichezea, but he was still expressing that I will be your president going forward. And therefore I actually was very encouraged when I saw people receive and embrace Raila in Kiambu, so that, you know, at times there is this thing, and I have to admit, majority of people have never met Raila in person. It's based on what they hear, the stories they had maybe in Sunday school, at home, in the barazas, and what people discuss on social media. But when he comes and explains himself, you listen to him and say, this man is not as bad as we have been told. The same with the president. But the other thing, of course, is that there are certain areas that have been previously seen as strongholds. For example, the Meru region, where there is a feeling that NASA could be gaining, you know, some support, and therefore there is a sense in which some people may feel we need to lock this place up to make sure that doesn't happen. But I think I encourage that they should actually come together, encourage tolerance, and that people have to visit their opponent's stronghold.
Finally, before we go on a break, on Onchari Oyeyo, of course, the Constitution guarantees the right to live and own property anywhere in this country, and even exercise your political rights.
Well, that is very true. I'd like to go back and make a statement based on what I've been able to do, to access during my research. The President has said it severally during his campaigns that guys should be allowed to campaign anywhere they want, of course, all over the country, especially for presidential candidates, without any problem. He said it. So I don't want to say the presidential candidates have not made that kind of statement. For the President himself, I've heard him say that repeatedly. Number two, the idea of campaigning in places where you're not likely to get votes. For example, Raila going to Central, we're going to Nyanza and parts of maybe Western and maybe the coast. is meant to avoid what we call political balkanization. That comes when some of these guys cling to places we call home turfs. Guys get to hate each other because, you know, the other guys are not given a chance to come and campaign. So it's meant to avoid that kind of division. So politicians are not allowed to cling to home turfs. That is a problem in the political process. Now, again, I don't think the kind of events we're seeing, of course, the heckling and all that, is meant to lock up a vote. It doesn't help. In fact, it can generate sympathy votes for the heckled politician. So it can have a negative effect. Lastly, in 2013, the former Prime Minister got overwhelming attendances in his political events in Meru and Embu and all that. So attendance in political rallies does not necessarily translate to votes. Of course, that is how Kenya votes. Guys can show up in your political rally and cheer you up. Of course, when the ballots are cast, you don't get anything. So what we can do is to make sure we preach the message of peace to all Kenyans, and all these guys have to be allowed to campaign. Again, before Kisumu, the campaigns were very much okay. So something happened somewhere, and action has to be taken, and I think Kenyans are willing to campaign peacefully. They're willing to receive political leaders whom they don't necessarily agree with, and of course, I'm not likely to see violence if action is taken. It cannot happen if we don't do anything.
But action has to be taken.
It has to be taken.
Yes, let's take a break there. Let's go on a break. We'll be back with a lot more.